Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, roll call, please.
Trustee Rhodey?
Here.
Trustee Belt? Here. Trustee Krasovich?
Here.
Trustee Roberts?
Here.
Trustee Grabowski?
Here.
Trustee Gergen? Here. President Knutson?
Here. Item 2 is public hearings. We have none. Item 3, approval of the regular village board meeting dated November 21st, 2023. I hope everyone's had a chance to read over it. Are there any questions, comments, corrections as the way they are presented this evening? No? Then I will look for a motion to approve as presented.
Motion, Rhodey.
Second, Krasovich.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Village minutes are hereby approved. Are you here with?
Yes, with Caleb for feedback.
Oh, okay. Then we have no citizens here, so I will move on to item 5. Ordinance, possible action on ordinance 2023-25, an ordinance to amend current fee schedule for the clerk and police department. Are there any questions or comments as to how it is presented this evening from the board?
I did have one
Yes.
question. I assume we can talk about any of the fees that are on this schedule?
Correct.
Okay. Scott, and Cassie, when it comes to vendor fees, so you've got a vendor who comes and is in a parking lot, it's a transient vendor, parking lot for a 3 or 4 week period of time. Are they paying an annual fee, or are they paying, and they do it year after year, annual fee, or are they just paid the fee once and they've never had to pay it again?
If it's not food related, it's a temporary sales item, and that, depending on how that's structured, it either goes through the plan commission for approval, or if it's something where the setup meets with setbacks and code requirements, it can be staff level approval. If it's something that's involving food, then it's more of a food vendor permit question.
Okay, so as an example, let's say a greenhouse operation that's in a parking lot every year, but they only do it during the spring period of time of year. Are they paying a fee annually, or did they just pay a fee once and they're done?
The one that we had, the 2 that we had, I don't think there's the one at St. Vinny's anymore.
No.
The one in front of Elliott's was approved by Plan Commission, I think back in 2004. So Plan Commission approved it going forward, so all they need is staff approval. So there is no fee that they are paying as part of that. It's just confirming the dates that they're there.
Okay.
And then making sure it's the same setup that the Plan Commission originally approved.
Okay, so that's something I guess the village board would want to discuss in the future, is it just seems it's drastically unfair that you have somebody that's competing directly with businesses that are paying taxes in the village of Pewaukee and are paying absolutely nothing as far as fees. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
The street dining, public space dining, what was the original schedule?
That is.
That is, okay. I just saw it was highlighted in the agenda.
Yeah, it's highlighted because it hasn't been included in our schedule of fees, and we're trying to get everything into one spot.
I just wanted to know if there was any.
Yeah, and
That's for you guys to talk
Yeah,
about.
so the fees that are in there were originally presented to the village board when this came into place, and those were the fees that Community East of here, Wauwatosa, had in place. And those are the fees they still have in place today. So that was my comparison when the fee structure first came before the village board.
So when we're talking the public space street dining, what are, as a frame of reference, what are we talking for square footage of, let's say, 3 parking stalls?
Like 3 parking stalls, you're probably getting into the 500. It might be pushing over the 500, the 225.
Okay.
I
Well,
had,
I was just saying, I can't think of anything that hits like A, B, or C that we currently have.
Yeah, the only one that might would be the area for Brewers 2, because they are using,
Oh, 'cause it's in the public.
it's in
right away.
the public right away,
Gotcha.
correct.
Okay.
So are these fees that they pay every year?
Yes.
Okay, and then are these fees that are for anybody who has a public dining area that's outside, or ones that are specifically in what would be village parking spots?
The only ones paying these right now are the ones that are public parking spots, and then Brewers 2 because they're using the public right away. And the existing street or sidewalk dining for, say, Seasters and Chocolate Factory, that all predates the street dining permit.
I mean, these just seem, for the ones where therefore are parking spaces, they seem incredibly low to me.
I would say I think it's great that we looked to Wauwatosa as a model when we established this. I'd be curious about what's possible, of course, equitable, and what's happening in other communities beyond Tosa now that we've had COVID and a lot more of restaurants and other vendors are using those spaces in various municipalities. Is that something staff would look into?
Yeah, I'm not sure which other ones have been using them.
I was gonna think of Tosa and Milwaukee. You know, heck, on the 3rd Street in Milwaukee, they actually gave them not only the parking lane, but they gave them one whole lane and turned 3rd Street from 2 lanes to 1 lane on the one side.
Yeah,
But I agree, the fees do seem low. However, I also look at it from, we shouldn't be putting up a deterrent for somebody coming in to want to bring some vibrancy to our community. So I get what you're saying, it does seem low, but we should also be encouraging them to expand their businesses, to bring more people down here, to service more people, to create more of an environment. So I have a tough time when I saw the 25 and 50, I thought, I was like, okay, that's way too low to give up spots for the whole summer type thing. And then as I asked, it's like, okay, 200 and some bucks they're paying. I get it, but those extra 10 tables, maybe 5 carloads of people from other communities that weren't here before. You know, like it's a small price to pay for, because they're having to go out and promote their businesses and do all that. So it's a small price to pay for built-in tourism, I would say, to bring people to Pewaukee. So I would trend lightly on a drastic fee increase. So.
I guess interested to see what other fees are going to be coming up from the other communities, but I still do look at this as this is the village subsidizing this area for these businesses. And there's other businesses around the village that don't have this benefit. We're subsidizing it, and we've got to remember that. Now, if it comes back that these are consistent numbers to what we're seeing in other municipalities, or in the ballpark, and yeah, I'm fine too. But I think we've got to always remember that we're subsidizing this space.
However, we also have to realize we can't penalize these businesses because they chose a higher rent district. You know, when we say that they have this benefit that we subsidize this, but somebody that's on Ryan Street or on Capitol doesn't have the same opportunity. That business chose to be out on Capitol, or it's a free market for them to pick whatever location they want.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
that's a benefit or the detriment of being on the lakefront.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
To make this go a little bit faster, why don't we do this? Seems to be a lot of question as to approving this particular item. And also to Bob's point, I think that's a very good point, that if we're allowing other entities to just come in here because they were approved 3 or 4 or 5 years ago and not having to pay anything, where these people, these businesses that are downtown are paying every year to have this. I think I would like to see someone move to put this off to the next meeting till we get all the information from surrounding communities, and also bring up the subject of making that change to, if they have a beer depot a beer truck down there, or food truck, or whatever it is, it's not a freebie anymore. You will be paying for that space.
It was never a freebie, to be clear. The beer truck and stuff was always a special event. So that was never.
No, I'm talking about like for the ski show,
Yeah,
for the food, any other food truck that's
Still not a
not.
freebie. They pay a special event.
They're paying $50 or $60 per day.
Yeah.
That they're
Well,
down.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then that's what I'm talking about. what
Which
you
is
were
being
discussing.
returned to the village.
Yes.
Yeah. But would you be okay with doing that? Or do you need this tonight?
Is there any other feedback that we should talk about before we move on the other items? Or is everybody good?
I didn't have
Unless you want
concerns.
to talk about chickens, then.
Does $1 really cover a gallon anywhere with the
Well, so, I know, it seems like, what's the point, but it at least covers our envelope and
stamp.
postage.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Can you,
by the service.
can you tell me what the sign permit was previously?
That's the current fee. It's just, again, we're wrapping it into the one-stop shopping of the fee structure.
So everything's in one spot.
So it's been the $50 base fee and $250 a square foot for many years.
I did have one question asked me, was,
Maybe.
if you own a bicycle in the village, do you have to license it?
If the code still requires them, then technically, yes. Do we have licenses to issue? Probably not.
Oh, no.
Okay, that answers my
You've
question.
been biking illegal this whole time.
Didn't even notice.
Can we have vanity bike plates?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? Do I have any type of motion?
Is this better table or defer?
Defer.
Motion to defer to next meeting for staff feedback.
Second, Roberts.
Okay, we have a motion to defer to the next meeting. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. This will be brought back at the next meeting. Resolution, discussion and possible action on Resolution 2023-18, authorizing entry into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement relating to the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative and authorizing participation in investment programs of the fund. Who would like to handle this? Kayla?
Well, actually, I'm going to introduce you here to Brett Whedon. He is here from TMA to discuss, you should all have handouts that he's going to go over. He will discuss the investment options that I was talking to him about, and also where we're going to see our interest rates and earnings.
Thanks, Kayla. Thank you, Scott, members of the board. Appreciate it. And appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. So, I don't know if this works here or not, but once again, my name is Brett Whedon with PMA Financial. So, I'm Vice President of Investment Services, and we're out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's our branch office. And a little bit of background on myself. I'm technically serving as a portfolio advisor, working with public entities across the state of Wisconsin for close to 20 years. So that's a little bit about me, and born and raised in Seaburg, Wisconsin. So just wanted to start off here in your handouts to give you a little bit of an overview of PMA and WISC and how those two intersect. So PMA Financial, we've been working in the public sector, providing financial services for public entities across the nation for, gosh, close to 40 years now, 40 years in 2024 here. And you can see our stats there, our PMA companies, PMA Financial Network, which is the administrator of WISC, which we'll get to momentarily. PMA Asset Management is the investment advisory arm that serves as the investment advisor and sub-advisor for our fund, WISC, and PMA Securities, which is our broker-dealer and municipal advisor, which is a member of the Financial Regulatory Authority, or FINRA, and SIPC. And so our stats, I know I touched on it a little bit, but nationwide, we're serving 14 different states, over 4,000 public entities. So once again, it's kind of our wheelhouse, serving villages and municipalities such as yourselves, and then collectively over 150 employees to service these types of engagements across the country. And then once again, you can see just our back of the baseball card stats there. Just over 46 billion in assets under administration here, end of last quarter, 9/30/2023. So how do we work together with WISC? PMA is the administrator and marketer and sub-investment advisor of the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative, or WISC. So you're probably familiar with the local government investment pool, so it's a similar type of arrangement there. WISC was established back in June of 1988. It's an intergovernmental agreement. So really the Oregon School District and Sheboygan School District came together to provide this agreement, and we've since grown to over 300 public entities that we serve across the state of Wisconsin. And we're beholden to our board. You can see the board members here, 10 of which are public service representatives across the state of Wisconsin. And WISC is predominantly only available to public entities across the state here. So just kind of diving into, I guess the PMA power of the network. So working with us at PMA, and specifically myself as the investment services representative of the village, really kind of working through me as a conduit for working with, whether it's FDIC product, with banks, financial institutions. We have over 1,000 network banks we work with across the nation. We have 50 securities dealers that we work with to provide government agencies, U.S. Treasury type investment vehicles. But really kind of just the power of working through us, letting us do all the work for you. And then ultimately, we're not taking discretion on any investments. So we're working hand in hand with the village to work with what works in your cash flow, and then ultimately provide those suggestions and recommendations for investments. And then ultimately working with Kayla and Scott and their team to determine what's appropriate and suitable as we're working with the village as a fiduciary advisor. So looking at that network, we're really showing you then on the next few pages really a snapshot of where we see CD rates and U.S. Treasury rates for an example of a couple of state statute allowable investment vehicles that we have. And so the snapshots that you're seeing here is really looking at what you could get in the market if you looked at $1.5 million, just as an example, out to various investment terms. So going anywhere from 3 months out to 2 years. That first page, you can see what CD product we have in the market. And what's really astounding is looking at, where we're at here today and going back to March of 2022, how quickly short-term rates have come off of zero. You can see a lot of the rates here on the CD side, right? You're well over 5%, which is amazing. And really speaks to how quickly the Federal Reserve came off of that zero rate environment in the wake of COVID, right? So you're seeing their short-term investment rate environment of basically 5.25 to 5.5%. Really short-term liquid funds like you'd see with with WISC, with our two investment pools or the state pool, if you will. But these are showing you what you'd have in the market as of yesterday's rates. So anywhere from a 90-day rate of a 5.28, going out 6 months at a 5.38, for example, and then really kind of contrary to what you normally would see with a quote-unquote normal yield curve. It's kind of counterintuitive. The further out you'd go out in the yield curve, you'd expect to command a little bit of a higher interest rate. With how quickly the Fed has come up with short-term rates, you see that curve kind of invert the longer you go. And so that's really baking in expectations that the market's saying over time, we anticipate that rates will start to decline. So kind of giving that as a backdrop, I feel like this is a great time to be having these conversations and put money to work as you can. And certainly being cognizant of your short-term liquidity needs as well. But just a snapshot of where we're kind of seeing rates right now. And then the next page, just as a comparable, we're just showing you what US Treasury rates are looking like. Once again, messaging is that the longest term, you're going on 2 years, right around a 4.5%, all the way to near term 3 months, you're at a 5.26%. So it's still kind of in that same range. CDs are paying a little bit higher rate, but this once again gives you a snapshot of where we're at on that front.
Brett, can I ask a question?
Sure. Yep.
Either Scott or Kayla, what percent return are we getting right now? Just ballpark.
I'm gonna do the J correct on this one. For LGIP, we're a little over 5%.
Yeah, the LGIP average was 5.37 from the prior month. So you're kind of in that range right between the 5.25% to 5.5%.
The bulk of our funds are at LGIP, I believe.
Yeah, so the majority of them are there, but what I'm looking to ultimately do just with, the projection of rates will eventually fall is to lock in with some higher interest CDs and or the US Treasury, so that as the rates do fall, we are still getting those higher interest rates.
Okay.
And so after we have that fixed rate discussion too, you can see there's also an interest indication slide that talks about the Wisconsin Investment Series cooperative rates or WISC rates. And so these daily rates are updated out there on the website that's listed. But our most recent cash management class series rate, which is a daily liquid pool, you'd have access to those dollars each business day up until 11 a.m. And same thing can be said for the investment class series at a 534 daily rate. And so those are fluctuating, and those are the rates that are liquid and available for you, and fluctuate more kind of in alignment with where Fed action is going. There is a Federal Open Market Committee meeting here on the 13th. Probabilities right now are well over 90% of them kind of standing pat, not doing anything at this point in time. But once again, it's a great time to have these types of conversations and talk about what the village can do to help drive investment earnings while still, adhering to, safety and liquidity over time as well. So certainly I've got one more slide here, and then I can open up to questions, but we thought this was valuable to kind of take a look at like an investment strategy discussion, looking at, a cash flow or even just kind of a rudimentary asset liability schedule to see what works for you longer term. But looking at a break-even example, this is really just looking at like $1 million, if you will. And if an investor were to say, hey, we're going to grab that 1 year rate at a 4.95, you could reasonably anticipate getting just under $50,000 in interest earnings if you locked in that 1 year rate. But like we talked about before, you see those higher rates a little bit shorter term. You could say, well, you know what? I'm going to grab that 5.23 at 6 months, and you'd capture that $25,792 here at the rates that we're seeing this week. Basically saying 6 months from now, you'd have to make sure that you have that break-even rate of a 481 to reinvest for the additional 6 months to capture an additional 23,000 and change. So it's kind of that we walk these types of examples to do the kind of a snapshot or break even, if you will, and what's appropriate, what's suitable for these investment rate type of discussions. So once again, myself working as an investment professional, we're not taking discretion in these types of relationships. The rates that we show you on the fixed rate side are net of all of our rates that we have through the PMA and WISC program. So that way, you're seeing the net rate each and every time we have that discussion. And I guess at this point, I'd be happy to open it up for questions and go from there.
Questions from the board?
So how is PMA compensated in terms of managing all this?
Yeah, good question. So I work on salary, so I'm not commission-based at all. Mm-hmm. And so to this point, if you see any fixed rate investments that we show you on that net rate basis, we're governed on a fixed rate fee schedule through the WISC information statement, so it's governed by the board. So if we did like a treasury or let's say a government agency, municipal security, we're capped at 15 basis points at 0.15%. So let's say you had a 5% in the market gross, we'd get that basically that 4.85 on a net rate basis, using that as an example. CDs were capped at 25 basis points or 0.25%. But anytime we're showing you these rates, you would see these rates net of any fees. So, so that way it's transparent. You know what you're going to get on these investment type discussions. So.
What, I just got something in the mail from my local bank that they're showing CDs at 6-month CDs higher than what they're showing here. What's the advantage of this over just going with the bank?
That's a good question as well. So, this is kind of just a snapshot of, or indicative rate snapshot, if you will, and where we're seeing the market rates right now.
Right.
Certainly, seeing the rates between the 5.25% and 5.5% kind of, is in alignment with where the Fed's currently at. But certainly, part of what we do too also is to include local banks. And there may be locals that are going to say, hey, you know what, the village is in the market for, 500,000 for various terms. We're certainly going to pay up, to beat that national network response. So that very well could be, a legitimate rate you're seeing. It could be a retail rate. It may not be an institutional rate that, the village would get. But case in point being that, yes, we want to make sure that we're incorporating locals in these types of investment discussions. So that way you can see those side by side with what the national network has to offer.
Okay, and then the second question I had, because right now the one that I was looking at was, the one that I got was 5.75. And that was for 6 months. Now, I don't know if we could do this, but I was just looking at the 6-month CD or 7-month, at 5.380, 5.380%, which is 42,450, just as an example. If we were to invest, if we could, $3 million, could we split 1.56 months here, 1.56 months here?
Certainly.
So we capture two.
Yeah. So certainly what we need to do is, number one, adhere to what the FDIC has for insured limits for institutions. So that's at $250,000. It used to be $100,000 way back when, but they moved that to $250,000. So making sure that whatever dollar amount you want to have invested at one term or multiple terms, that we're cognizant of that, but then making sure that you're staying under that FDIC insured limits. And then if you have the ability to have collateral or insurance wrapped on top of that with any one institution, let's say, we'd want to make sure that we are adhering to the policy there as well.
So our money is insured, so if something would happen, we would still get at least what we put in.
Right. If an institution were to fail, you'd have that principal plus interest earned through that date of failure.
Any other questions or comments?
So from the write-up, you're talking about doing kind of a mix of whether it's laddering the CDs or different types of T-bills and things like that. So you're talking about having some kind of a mix.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think, the CDs and treasuries were really some common examples that we've seen in the market that's not exhaustive of what is allowable under state statute. But, for good reason, public fund investing, state statute is not super, exciting on the investment side, right? And that's for good reason, is because you're focused on, the principal, maintaining that liquidity and then yield. So
my main focus, I wanted to have a more diverse portfolio, and right now the only thing we have is LGIP. So I wanted to start laddering CDs for our future, and then also having some of those treasury bills to do the same thing.
It's an excellent idea. I mean, and plus, instead of you having to do this on a daily basis, have it more professionally managed and, let them take care of a lot of the back and forth stuff. So, and take advantage of the rates while we can.
Yeah,
I agree.
I appreciate that, Kayla.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Thanks for keeping your eye on the ball with this, and that diversification seems like a really
So
smart.
do you want to adjust the budget for revenue from?
Hey.
That's right. Give her a med. Well, after you're gone, it's going to look even better, I hear.
Drop your big salary.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Are there any other questions or comments? Would someone like to make a motion as to this resolution?
I'll make a motion to pass the I'm just trying to get to it here, sorry. So it would be resolution 2023-18 into a intergovernmental cooperation agreement relating to the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative. authorizing participation in the investment programs of the fund for laddered CDs.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution 2023-18 is hereby adopted. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate all the information.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Kayla, for doing that with us. Old business, we have none. New business, review of process and procedure for administrative evaluation. Bob, I guess we'll let you start on that. Would you like to Okay, would you like to amend?
I just wanted to go over the process and timeline that we have, make sure there's no question. Similar to, it is the same process we did last year. The things I want to emphasize is that by providing feedback, you know, it improves, you know, employee overall attitude of the employee. It reinforces the preferred behavior that you want. The only way we can let Scott know whether we're happy or not happy with his job is by providing feedback, okay? So as we go through this process, if you are grading, and it's going to be a 0 to 4 rating again that you're going to give on every objective. If you are doing a below or above performance, I need to know your comments, okay? Why are you saying it's below? Why are you saying it's above? Okay, that's really important. That helps Scott in improving his performance overall, or maintaining his performance if he's doing an exceptional job. So you're going to be receiving, well, I guess the first thing, we've met 4 times. That would be the village president, Scott, and I have met 4 times over the year. And all we did was talk performance management, go over his objectives and where he was. The last one was last week, November 30th. He has provided a PDF with his input that I'm going to be sharing with each of you in an email, either tomorrow or on Thursday. So you'll be receiving that information that will include the objectives, his goals, his input. I will be providing you directions on what to do with it. I'll have a Word document where you can provide the rating and comments. I need you to return those back to me by December 17th. Okay? So you're going to have almost 2 weeks to get that, well, a little bit, week and a half to get that done. And then on December 19th, in a closed session, we'll review the summary ratings, and then we'll make decisions on his overall performance. Beginning of the year then we switch over to 2024. And we don't need to specifically talk about that today, but we'll set in January, we're going to be setting the goals and objectives for 2024. Okay, is there any questions in regard to the 2023 performance evaluation? Okay, good. So you'll be getting an email from me individually in the next 2 days with all the information you need. Get it back to me by the 17th. Okay?
No questions, but I just want to appreciate you, Bob. This process has proven to bear fruit. It's really meaningful, really beneficial, so thanks for managing it.
But, and again, I ran away from performance management in my old job before I retired, said I would never do it again.
Never say never.
Hasn't worked out so well. So thank you, and